Okay, this is going to be a little different than normal. So, when you watch this is going to be airing probably the day after Sean Connery's birthday, um, which would be August 25th. He was born in 1930. Um, and this video is basically a bit of a love letter, a bit of a remembering Sean Connery type of a video. Uh, and in this video, I want to be a little more, maybe authentic is the right word. Maybe that's the right word. Definitely vulnerable. Uh, I'm going to share with you my story about Sean Connery and where he kind of lands for me, not only as a Bond fan, but how I was feeling when I found out that he had passed away. And I'm going to borrow a little bit of Jack White here for a second from The Sound of 007 on Prime when he said, "Some of you watching are not going to like this video." And I'm okay with that because as a creator, as a fan, I have to be willing to do different things and try different types of content. And I want to let you know that I'm not cutting this video at all. I'm going to keep this running and I'm going to try to keep this under a certain amount of time. But I wanted to be as authentic and just me, kind of raw, talking to you. So, obviously, a little bit of a backstory on me. When I got into Bond, uh, like many of us who were kids of the 90s, GoldenEye was my entry point to James Bond. And I played the video game at a friend's house, was instantly hooked, and was like, wait a minute, there's a movie? So, went and checked out the movie, loved the film. And at that point, and I had known at that point that there were other films. I think the furthest back trailer I can recall seeing was Timothy Dalton's License to Kill. So that's the only one I can really remember seeing. I don't remember of The Living Daylights. I don't remember A View to a Kill, like seeing the trailers as a kid or anything. And GoldenEye, again, it was my entry point. And from there, I dove headlong in to the franchise and was pretty much a fan immediately. I subscribed to, and back in the day, some of you may remember these, but there were video subscription services. BMG Music was for the music, and you could get CDs every month. And I found something similar with movies and VHS cassettes, and I started getting the Bond movies. They would send me one movie per, I think it was either per month or it was per month. Yeah. And the first film they sent me was GoldenEye, and I got a case that you can put all the VHSs in. Most of you who are fans have probably seen these VHSs. It was in like a black case with the like a almost like a copper colored like gun barrel, and I think it had Roger's silhouette in the gun barrel. But it was a cool little piece of collection. It started me collecting James Bond actually, because of the cool presentation piece. And I really enjoyed GoldenEye, of course. The following month, they sent me Sean Connery's first one, of course, Dr. No. And talk about just opening my mind to an era not only of film, spy, adventure, but this instantly became my role model. Um, little backstory on me. I grew up without a father, and My mom did a great job. I love my mother to death. I see her every week still, and she did a great job as a single parent. But I didn't have that male masculine role model in my life for those for my whole life. Um, and while Goldeneye was cool, Pierce Brosnan didn't give me a sense of like that could be my dad. Like he was more of a modern day in kind of a way for me like a superhero. He was the dangerous spy. He was a gentleman, but he didn't have the presence of masculinity that Connery carried, and it was a very different weight that Connery carried. I think it also helped for me that the films were older, so I immediately associated with him as just being an older man. Um, and obviously, I had seen him in other films, The Hunt for the Red October, uh, and a few of his other films. So I had already established that Connery was older, and I was looking back at his younger work while watching Doctor No, and then subsequently all of his other films. And unfortunately, that movie subscription that I had, it fell by the wayside right at Diamonds Are Forever. So I didn't get into Roger Moore, and James Burb can attest to that because for the longest time I didn't I didn't watch the Roger Moore films. I had issues with anyone who wasn't Connery or Brosnan, and I think that was just a youthful. I don't know. I didn't connect with Roger Moore really until probably the past few years, and Melanie with James Burb, her and I did a watch along with A View to a Kill, and she got me to appreciate Roger Moore in a completely new light, and I'm so glad she did because I do appreciate Roger now. But back to Sean, though that like 6 months of every month I got a new movie. And whenever I got the new movie, it made me want to go back and watch the previous movie or one of the other ones. So if I got Goldfinger, I might go back and watch Doctor No later that week. And I really had a lot of fun getting to know this version of the character. And obviously, Sean Connery. And I dove into additional films that he'd put out. Anything that he put out, I could get my hands on. I was like, oh, I want to see it. It's got Sean Connery in it immediately. And then fast forward for years and years, and I look back on those films, and I really do look at those films as paving the way of what a man should be like. Now, obviously, not all of the ways because there's some debauchery and some craziness there, but how to walk into a room confident, how to stand properly, how to appear confident even if you're scared to death, how to handle stress, how to shoot a gun, how to be fearless in a time where most people are experiencing a heavy amount of fear, and how to just throw myself into any adventurous situation for the sake of the adventure. And I did this for years, and it led me down some very exciting paths. I made some very poor choices, but I used the Connery era Bond as a blueprint for, as a whole, this is what a man should be. The ladies liked him, the guys wanted to be him, and he lived life to the fullest, appreciating everything in his path, from the food to the fashion and everything in between. So that is kind of who I really molded myself after. And while I didn't nail every aspect, of course, um, we all have additional influences that come from us in all different directions of life. I always leaned on and said Connery is kind of like he was kind of like my dad, um, and I had these memories of him. So fast forward again. It's the day where he passes away, and I'm sorry I didn't look up the exact date. I don't have it memorized. Maybe I should, but I know where I was and I know how I felt. I was with my mom actually, and we were at IKEA of all places. She wanted to go look at some end tables. And at that time, she wasn't able to get around very well on her own. So I would put her in the wheelchair and, push her around, and that's fine. We found all kinds of fun things. And we're walking around and all of a sudden I get a phone call. And it's one of my good friends. He said, "Hey, did you hear the news?" "What do you mean? What news? What are you talking about?" He said, "Sean Connery died." And guys, when I tell you that hearing that, I felt like I had been hit by a car. And it's so strange to me because after the moment, and I'll dive a little bit more into it in a second, but just on the topic of celebrity deaths, because obviously this man was a celebrity. He was he was not James Bond, but in many ways, um, Terrence Young was James Bond, really, if you think about it. He kind of molded Connery into that character. And I heard this and I thought to myself, okay, Sean Connery is dead. And the wave of emotions that came over me in that moment really surprised me. I didn't know how to feel. I ultimately ended up having almost a panic attack in the middle of IKEA. It was pretty intense. I had to like walk outside. I had to ask for an IKEA attendant to kind of keep an eye on my mom for a second. And I've never really shared this story with many people. There's two or three people that know this story. So again, I wanted to be vulnerable and kind of go into this with you guys because I feel like he was worth it. And there's only ever been one other celebrity that kind of got me, and that was Kurt Cobain. But I think that was topical just because of my teenage years with the angst and everything, and just where I was at in life when that happened. But this was different, even still. Um, this truly felt like I lost a family member. The impact, it was serious. Uh, like I had to go collect myself. I was almost in tears, and still to this day, like when I start to think about that day and that moment and how I felt, I start to tear up a little bit. I don't cry very often. It's just not something that I've ever done. But when I do, I crack sometimes, and I think that's healthy. Uh, we all should be able to experience that emotion when we need to because we all process mourning in a very different way. And there is no right or wrong way to process the loss of someone important in your life, whether it is a dedicated family member, like a sibling or a parent or a best friend, a lover, uh, or in this case, celebrity who a young boy looked at as a father figure and substitute for the one he didn't have. And it hit me. It hit me really hard. And I wasn't right for about a week. I really struggled to process this. And I started thinking about a lot of the interviews and watching a lot of the interviews where people spoke highly of him, and especially, of course, on the Bond sets, because there's a lot of those available. Uh, and I think one of my favorite was Honor Blackman, Pussy Galore. And she said that Sean had such a presence of him. Like, he just exuded sexuality and masculinity, um, that it was almost like you got sucked into his, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Planetary pull, like his magnetism, I guess. And don't quote me on that. I'm paraphrasing here, of course, but she spoke so highly of him. You could see in her eyes she lit up when she spoke about him, and as did many other of his, you know, co-stars in several films. Many people had positive things to say, even when he went on Barbara Walters and did the famous interview about the slap. And I'll, if you don't know what that is, I'll let you look that up. You'll know it. You'll find it. But that was controversial. Even when that was filmed, that was fairly controversial. And he still got away with it because he kind of was that man. And I joked for years. I kind of always joked with friends and girlfriends because obviously they see all this, and it wasn't as much as it is now back then. But I used to joke with them, and I would say, the uh, the testosterone level on the planet will drop 5% when Sean Connery dies. And that did, it hit me. It hit me hard. So I wanted to kind of share my experience of how it made me feel when he passed, because it really did send shockwaves through me. And I did mourn the loss of this actor, of this man who had left a legacy behind him of being the world's greatest super spy. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really would love to hear from you, though. And I think that's the ultimate way we can pay respect to his legacy, is to talk about him and keep him in our memories. So comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Where were you when you found out that he passed? Is he your favorite Bond? What do you think of all of his films? Not just the Bond films, but even the other ones. I mean, there's countless ones out there. The Rock. Uh, Let me know. I want to hear from you. Excuse me. I'm not cutting this. Like I said, I'm letting this go because I want this to be raw. But again, I do want to hear from you. So comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Tell me your story about how you celebrate Sean Connery and his legacy. This is Chris with the Bond Report. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, Merry Christmas, 007.